The story opens on a distant alien colony. Children are laughing and playing in the square under the glow of twin suns. But one figure stands apart, a small alien girl, quiet and distant, watching them with sad eyes. Her skin shimmers faintly with colors that mark her as different from the others. The others whisper about her, calling her cursed. She lowers her head, hiding the tears forming in her eyes. She has no friends. She has never joined their games. The colony mothers often tell their children to keep away from her, fearing her bloodline. She feels invisible until a human newly arrived on the colony notices her standing alone. His name is Daniel. He's a worker assigned to repair damaged machines. But when he sees her standing apart, something in her loneliness hits him deeply. He remembers being the quiet one in his own childhood, left out, overlooked. Daniel doesn't approach immediately. Instead, he studies the way the others treat her. The children shove past her, not even giving her a glance. The girl curls her arms around herself, almost wishing she could disappear. But then Daniel steps forward, his boots heavy against the dusty ground. Everyone stops to look. Humans are rare here. The colony isn't used to outsiders. The alien girl glances up, surprised that anyone would come near her. Daniel doesn't speak right away. Instead, he kneels slightly, lowering himself to her level, and extends his hand. The crowd goes silent, some gasp. A human touching the cursed child is unthinkable. The girl's lips tremble. Her people had told her no one would ever want her near them. But this human with his kind eyes is offering her something no one else ever has. Hope. The girl hesitates, staring at his open palm. The other children whisper warnings, mocking him. The colony elders frown from a distance, but Daniel doesn't pull his hand back. He waits, steady and calm. Finally, the girl reaches out, trembling, and places her small hand into his. In that instant, everything changes. Her world of silence cracks open, and the smallest smile touches her face for the first time in years. The colony stares in shock. The cursed child has been chosen, and it was a human who dared to do what no alien ever did. The colony square did not forget what happened that day. Whispers followed Daniel wherever he went. The human had touched the cursed girl. Mothers pulled their children close when he passed. Fathers gave him sharp warning stares. Some even spat on the ground after he walked by. The air around him felt heavy, but Daniel did not turn away. He had made a choice, and he did not regret it. Lyra trailed behind him like a shadow. At first she kept her distance, unsure if he truly meant what he had done. She expected him to leave her, just like everyone else always did. But when Daniel stopped by the workshop where he was repairing broken farming machines, he looked back at her and smiled. "You hungry?" he asked. She blinked, not used to being asked a question. Slowly, she nodded. Daniel opened a pack of human rations, dry bread, and protein paste. He broke it in half and handed it to her. She stared at the food, trembling. No one had ever shared with her before. For a moment, she wondered if it was a trick, if the colony had sent him to mock her, but his eyes were kind, steady, without cruelty. She took the bread with shaking hands and ate carefully, savoring every bite as though it were a treasure. When she finished, Daniel said, "What's your name?" She hesitated, her lips dry. "Lyra," she whispered at last. The name sounded fragile, as though she had not spoken it aloud in a long time. Daniel nodded. "Lyra," he repeated, giving her name weight. She felt something strange in her chest. Warmth, small but real. He had not laughed at her name. He had not turned away. Word spread quickly through the colony. The elders called Daniel into the council chamber. The tall room, lined with stone and glowing crystals, felt colder than any winter night. They sat in silence at first, their alien eyes fixed on him. Finally, one spoke. "You must leave the girl. She is not for you. She is marked." Another added, "Her family brought ruin. Do not bind yourself to her curse." Their words were sharp, heavy with fear. Daniel listened, but his jaw tightened. He stood tall. "She's a child," he said firmly. "Nothing about her is cursed. What you call a curse is just loneliness." The council hissed at his defiance. "You are a guest here, human. Do not forget your place," the elder warned. But Daniel only bowed stiffly and walked out. His hands trembled, but his mind was clear. He would not abandon Lyra. Outside, Lyra waited near the entrance. Her eyes were wide, afraid he would not come back. But when she saw him, her shoulders loosened. He placed a hand gently on her head. "Come on," he said softly. "Let's get you out of here." She followed him without question, her steps light with relief. Over the next days, Daniel taught her small things. He showed her how to tighten bolts, how to clean a filter, how to fix the squealing gears on a plow. She watched him closely, her large eyes following every move. When she tried with her own hands, she fumbled, but Daniel did not scold. He laughed softly and guided her fingers. For the first time, she laughed too, the sound strange in her own ears. That laugh became her secret treasure. At night, she whispered stories about her past. Her voice shook as she told him how her parents vanished during a raid years ago. She had been too young to understand. But the colony had whispered that their disappearance was linked to forbidden power. Because of that, the blame had fallen on her. Daniel listened without interrupting, anger building inside him. How could they put such weight on a child? But he did not let the anger show. Instead, he said, "You survived. That's strength, Lyra. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." She looked at him with wide eyes as though no one had ever spoken those words to her. The colony children, however, did not stay silent. One evening, as Daniel and Lyra crossed the square, a group of boys blocked their path. They jeered at Lyra, calling her cursed spawn Shadowborn Plagueblood. One boy threw a stone, striking her shoulder. She winced but did not cry. She had grown used to pain. But Daniel stepped in front of her, his fists clenched. His voice cut through the air like steel. "Enough," he said. The boys hesitated, surprised at the human's tone. Still one spat, "She doesn't belong here." Daniel's eyes burned. "Then neither do I." He took Lyra's hand and walked forward. The boys scattered, their laughter fading into silence. That night, Lyra sat beside him as he worked on an engine. Her hand brushed against his, timid but real. She whispered, "Why?" He looked at her, confused. "Why what?" She lowered her head. "Why do you not leave me?" "Everyone else does." Daniel sighed, then placed his tools down. He faced her fully, because no one deserves to be left behind. Her lips trembled and her eyes shone. Slowly she smiled again, a little brighter than before. But neither of them noticed the shadow watching from the distance. Someone in the colony was not pleased with the humans' defiance. And soon, Daniel and Lyra would face a danger far greater than cruel whispers or thrown stones. The colony no longer whispered. Now they shouted. Everywhere Daniel went, voices rose in anger. The human protects the cursed one. He spreads her shadow. Even the merchants closed their stalls when he passed. Mothers dragged their children inside. Lyra felt the sting of their eyes more than the words. She clutched Daniel's sleeve, wanting to vanish. But Daniel never let go of her hand. He stood tall, even as the weight of the colony pressed against him. One evening, a council guard stopped him outside the workshop. His tall figure blocked the door. "You've been warned," the guard said. "Leave the girl. If you care for your safety, walk away." Daniel's voice stayed calm, but his jaw was tight. "She's just a child." The guard leaned closer, his alien eyes glowing faint in the dusk. "Not a child, a danger. Her blood carries ruin." Daniel met his gaze without blinking. "Then ruin can stay with me." He pushed past the guard, pulling Lyra gently with him. The guard's hand twitched toward his weapon but stopped. Even here, striking a human unprovoked would stir trouble. Inside the workshop, Daniel tried to work on a broken harvester engine, but Lyra sat in silence, hugging her knees. Her eyes were far away. "They're right," she whispered. Daniel looked up. "About what?" She lowered her head. "I hurt people." Her voice was thin, filled with fear. "When I was small, things happened, lights, fire. They said it was me. They said I carry the old power." Daniel put his tools down. He crouched beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You didn't choose that, Lyra. It doesn't make you cursed. It makes you different." She looked at him, her eyes wet, searching his face for doubt. She found none, but the colony boys had not forgotten their shame. Days later, they found her alone near the well. Daniel had gone to fetch parts, leaving her just for a short time. The boys circled her, sneering. "Where's your human now?" One taunted. Another shoved her, and she stumbled. They laughed. One boy raised a stone larger than before, aiming for her head. Lyra froze. Her chest tightened. Fear and anger twisted together. Her skin began to glow faintly, threads of blue light racing across her arms. The boy stepped back, startled. The stone slipped from one's hand. "She's doing it," one cried. "She's cursed." The air crackled. The ground beneath her feet trembled. small stones rising into the air as if pulled by invisible strings. Lyra screamed, not from rage but from terror of herself. The boys fled, their cries echoing through the square. The glow faded and she collapsed, shaking. When Daniel returned, he found her curled against the well, her face pale. He rushed to her side. What happened? She only sobbed into his chest, whispering, "I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to." Daniel held her tight, his own heart pounding. He understood now. The colony's fear wasn't born from nothing, but it was twisted, cruelly aimed at a child who never asked for this power. That night the council gathered the colony. Torches lit the square, and shadows danced across alien faces filled with fear. The eldest counselor raised his staff. "You have seen it," he declared. "The cursed blood awakens again. This girl is a danger to us all, and the human defies our warnings. He must release her or share her fate." Murmurs rose. Some called for banishment. Others demanded worse. Daniel stood before them, Lyra trembling behind him. His voice rang out. "She is not your enemy. She is a child. You punish her for fear, not for truth." But his words struck a wall of silence. Fear had blinded them. Suddenly, one angry father broke from the crowd, his face twisted with rage. "My son was near her today. He could have died." He drew a blade, rushing forward. Daniel stepped in front of Lyra, ready to fight barehanded. But before the man could strike, the air around Lyra shimmered again. A flash of light burst outward, throwing the man backward into the dust. Gasps filled the night. The colony stared at the girl, glowing faintly, her eyes wide with shock. She looked at her hands as though they were strangers. She whispered, "I can't stop it." Daniel knelt beside her, his voice steady even as his mind raced. "Lyra, listen to me. You're not cursed. You're stronger than this. You can control it. Trust me." She looked at him, desperate. "I'm scared." He held her hand tight. "So am I, but we face it together." The glow dimmed, fading into nothing. The colony remained silent, shaken by what they had witnessed. The council's eyes burned with fear. They spoke quietly among themselves, then announced, "The girl must be taken. She cannot remain free." Guards moved closer. Daniel rose, fury in his voice. "You'll have to go through me." The crowd stirred, divided between fear of Lyra and shock at the human's defiance. The guards hesitated, unwilling to provoke a fight that might ignite her power again. Finally, the council declared, "At dawn the girl will be judged." That night, Daniel and Lyra sat in the quiet of the workshop. Lyra's small hand clutched his tightly as though letting go would mean the end. "They'll take me," she whispered. Daniel shook his head. "Not if I can help it." He looked at the stars beyond the window, his mind racing. The colony feared her power. Others beyond this place might see it as something else. And if they wanted to survive, they would have to run before dawn. The night before dawn felt endless. Every sound outside the workshop made Lyra flinch. She huddled in the corner, her knees to her chest, afraid the guards would storm in at any moment. Daniel worked quietly, his hands moving fast as he gathered tools, scraps of metal, and old parts. He was not preparing machines this time. He was preparing for escape. When Lyra finally spoke, her voice was almost a whisper. "They will take me tomorrow." Her eyes shimmered with fear. "They will hurt you if you stay." Daniel stopped, looked at her, and said firmly, "I won't let them. I don't care what they say. You're not their prisoner." She stared at him, struggling to believe. No one had ever defied the colony for her. "Why?" she whispered again. He gave a small smile. "Because you deserve more than fear. You deserve a chance to live." Before dawn, Daniel searched the workshop's storage for records. The colony kept old files in crystal drives, logs of attacks, family histories, and forgotten wars. He hoped to find a clue. As Lyra slept fitfully in the corner, Daniel scrolled through glowing texts. He found her family name again and again. Each mention was marked by fear. The Sarathi bloodline. Bearers of light, dangerous. He read further and discovered something shocking. Long ago, the Sarathi were guardians of ancient machines, protectors of alien technology older than the colony itself. Their power was not a curse, it was a key. The energy in their blood connected with lost relics that could shape worlds. Daniel's heart pounded. If the mercenaries or warlords beyond this planet learned the truth, they would hunt Lyra endlessly. That was why the colony buried the past. Fear had twisted memory into legend and legend into curse. Lyra was not dangerous because of what she was. She was dangerous because of what others might do with her. When she woke, Daniel told her what he had learned in simple words she could understand. She listened in silence, her eyes wide. "So, they hate me because they're afraid," she said softly. Daniel nodded. "Yes, but fear doesn't mean truth. Your power isn't evil, Lyra. It's a gift. It can protect, not destroy." Her small hands tightened around his arm. "But I can't control it." Daniel crouched beside her, his voice calm. "Then I'll help you learn." He began that very morning. They slipped out of the workshop before the sun fully rose, moving into the rocky hills beyond the colony. From there, they could see the entire settlement, small and fragile under the twin suns. Daniel picked a quiet place where no one would see. "All right," he said, standing in front of her. "Show me." Lyra shook her head, afraid. "What if I hurt you?" Daniel knelt, meeting her eyes. "Then I'll get back up." "I trust you." His voice carried no doubt. Slowly, trembling, she raised her hands. A faint shimmer of blue light flickered across her skin. At first, the power was wild. Small stones rattled. Dust swirled in sharp gusts. Lyra panicked, the glow growing brighter. "I can't stop it," she cried. Daniel moved closer, taking her hand firmly. "Look at me, Lyra, not the power. Look at me." She locked eyes with him, tears streaming. His calm voice guided her. "Breathe slow in and out. You're in control, not the power." Little by little, the light faded. The ground stilled. Lyra collapsed into his arms, exhausted but alive. "See," he said gently. "You stopped it. Not me. You." Her lips trembled, and a small smile broke through her tears. They practiced through the day. Each time she gained a little more control. She laughed nervously when sparks jumped from her fingertips, and Daniel laughed with her. Turning fear into play, he taught her to steady her breathing, to think of something warm instead of her fear. At one point, he pulled a small metal trinket from his pocket, a broken pendant he had carried from Earth. He gave it to her. "Hold this when you're scared. Focus on it. Remember that you're not alone." She clutched it tightly, feeling strength where before there had only been emptiness. By evening, her face was different. Still fragile, but no longer hollow. She smiled more freely, her laughter unsteady but real. Daniel watched her, realizing he had not seen her look so alive until now. But he also knew the colony would not stay silent. News of her power had spread, and someone else beyond the colony might already know too. That night, as the suns fell and stars filled the sky, Daniel and Lyra sat by a small fire in the hills. Lyra's voice was soft but steady. "When they call me cursed, it hurts less now." Daniel looked at her. "Because you know the truth," she nodded. "Because you remind me." She leaned against him, clutching the pendant. For the first time in her life, she did not feel completely alone. But far away, in the shadows beyond the colony's borders, other eyes were watching. A group of mercenaries had arrived, drawn by whispers of the Sarathi bloodline. They saw the flicker of blue light against the hills. Their leader smiled coldly. "So the stories are true. The cursed child lives." He raised a communicator. "Tell the client we've found her. Tomorrow we claim her." The next morning began with shouts. The colony gates, old and rusted, shook under the fists of armored strangers. Mercenaries, tall and scarred, stood in formation, their weapons gleaming in the pale sun. The colony guards froze, uncertain. No one had expected outsiders to come so soon. From the hills, Daniel and Lyra saw the commotion. His jaw clenched. He knew this day would come faster than they wanted. The mercenary leader stepped forward. His armor bore the marks of many battles, his face hidden behind a black visor. His voice carried cold authority. "We seek the Sarathi child. Hand her over and your colony will be spared. Resist and you all suffer." The crowd murmured in panic. Mothers held their children tighter. Fathers exchanged fearful looks. The elders gathered, their faces pale. The name Sarathi had been whispered for years, but now it had returned with weight and danger. Daniel pulled Lyra deeper into the hills, away from sight. She trembled. "They're here for me," she whispered. Her voice cracked with guilt. "They'll hurt everyone because of me." Daniel knelt before her, gripping her shoulders firmly. "No, Lyra, this isn't your fault. This is their greed, and we won't let them take you." She shook her head. "But the colony will give me away. They always wanted me gone." Her words cut deep because Daniel knew she was right. Fear made people betray the innocent. At the gates, the elders argued with the mercenary leader. "We want no trouble," one said nervously. "If the girl is truly what you seek, take her. But you must promise safety to the rest of us." The leader tilted his head slightly. "Safety, yes. But if you lie, if she is hidden from us, your safety will burn with your walls." His men laughed cruelly, their weapons humming with power. The colony lowered their heads. They would sacrifice a child to save themselves. That night, when Daniel returned to the workshop with Lyra, he found guards waiting. Their eyes were cold, their hands tight on their spears. "The council demands the girl," one said. "They've agreed to trade her for peace." Daniel stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Peace bought with a child's life is no peace at all." The guard frowned. "She is not worth all of us." Daniel's eyes blazed. "She's worth more than any of you realize." The guards hesitated, but they had their orders. Daniel slammed the door shut, bolting it. He turned to Lyra, who clutched the pendant he had given her. "They'll come for you tonight. We have to be ready." Lyra's voice shook. "We can't fight them. There are too many." Daniel crouched beside her. "Then we don't fight like them. We fight smart, and you're stronger than you know." She shook her head. "I'll hurt you." He smiled softly. "Then hurt me and I'll still stand. But don't let them take you." She looked at him, tears shining, and finally nodded. When the night fell, torches lit the square. The colony gathered as the mercenaries marched in. Their leader demanded again, "Bring her out." The elders pointed toward the workshop. Guards advanced, breaking the door. But inside, the workshop was empty. Daniel had already led Lyra into the underground tunnels, old maintenance shafts carved long ago for farming pipes. The mercenaries searched the workshop, furious. "They defy us," the leader growled. "Burn it all until she is found." Flames spread across the edges of the colony as his men obeyed. Down in the tunnels, Lyra stumbled in the dark, her breathing ragged. The walls shook with distant explosions. "They'll kill everyone," she said. "Because of me." Daniel pulled her close. "No, because of their greed. You can't carry their sins." They pressed onward, deeper into the tunnels, but the path was not safe. Mercenaries, skilled hunters, had already sent scouts into the underground. Soon footsteps echoed ahead. Daniel's grip on her hand tightened. "Stay behind me." The first scout appeared, his weapon glowing in the dark. Daniel lunged, slamming a wrench into his helmet. The soldier fell, but more followed. Lyra's fear spiked, and blue light flickered around her hands. Rocks trembled, dust rained from the ceiling. Daniel turned to her quickly.
"Focus, Lyra!"
"Not the fear, me. Look at me." She locked eyes with him, her body shaking. The glow steadied, small but controlled. The tunnel walls shifted, sealing off one path with falling stone, trapping the mercenaries behind. Lyra gasped, shocked at her own control. Daniel grinned. "See? You saved us." They reached a hidden exit, emerging onto the hills under starlight. Behind them, smoke rose from the colony. Screams echoed faintly. Lyra's face twisted with guilt, but Daniel's voice was firm. "You can't save those who chose to betray you, but you can save yourself. And you can save me too." For a moment, she saw herself not as cursed, but as someone with strength. She nodded, clutching his hand tighter. Far below, the mercenary leader watched the flames consume part of the colony. He raised his visor, revealing a scarred face and a cruel smile. "They'll run," he said calmly. "And when they do, we'll follow. The girl cannot hide forever." His men cheered, their voices echoing in the night. The hunt had only just begun. The hills at night were merciless. Sharp winds cut across the rocky slopes, and the stars above offered little comfort. Daniel guided Lyra along narrow paths, keeping low. Behind them, the glow of fires burned the colony. The mercenaries had no reason to stop their cruelty now. Lyra stumbled, her small legs aching, but Daniel lifted her onto his shoulders. "Hold tight," he said. She clung to him, her face pressed against his back. Every step felt heavier with the thought that the mercenaries would not stop until she was theirs. By dawn, they reached the edge of the forest. The trees stretched tall, their leaves glowing faintly in the morning light. Strange creatures called from the branches, their eyes watching from the dark. Lyra looked around nervously. "It's dangerous here." Daniel nodded, scanning the shadows. "Yes, but danger keeps others away too. We'll use it." He set her down, and together they moved deeper into the woods. Each sound of snapping twigs made Lyra flinch, but Daniel kept his hand steady on her shoulder. "Listen," he whispered. "Fear doesn't rule you. Remember how you stopped the tunnel from collapsing? That was you, not the power. You are stronger than you think. She breathed deeply, trying to steady herself, but the mercenaries were not far behind. By midday, Daniel spotted movement in the trees, dark shapes stalking, their weapons glinting. The hunters were closing in. He pulled Lyra down behind a fallen log. "They've tracked us," he said quietly. Her eyes widened. "We can't outrun them." Daniel looked at her, his face calm despite the danger. "Then we don't run. We make them regret chasing us." He picked up sharp stones and metal scraps he had carried from the workshop. Crude traps, but enough to slow them. Together they set trip lines, hidden pits, and branches weighted with stones. Lyra's small hands worked fast, eager to help. For the first time, she felt like she wasn't just a burden. She was part of the fight. The mercenaries entered the forest, moving with trained precision. One tripped a line and a branch swung hard, knocking him to the ground. Another fell into a shallow pit, cursing as thorns ripped his armor. Daniel pulled Lyra along the side path, weaving through the trees. But soon energy blasts cut through the forest, burning holes in trunks. The leader's voice boomed. "You cannot hide. The girl is ours." Lyra froze, her fear rising again. The blue glow flickered across her skin. Daniel grabbed her hands. "Focus, Lyra, breathe. Don't give it to fear, give it to me." "Look at me." She locked eyes with him, trembling. The glow steadied, spreading outward like a shield. The next blast struck, but instead of burning them, the energy bent away, scattering into sparks. Lyra gasped, shocked. I stopped it." Daniel grinned. "You saved us again." They ran until their lungs ached, finally reaching a clearing with an ancient structure half buried in vines. The stone was old, carved with strange symbols. Lyra's steps slowed. She touched the stone and her skin glowed brighter, the markings responding. Daniel watched in awe as the ruins lit faintly, as though recognizing her. "This is what they fear," he whispered. Lyra looked up at him, frightened. "It wants me." Daniel placed his hand over hers on the stone. "Then it will have both of us." The glow softened, wrapping them in light before fading. Lyra's heart pounded. She didn't understand, but for the first time she felt the power wasn't wild. It was waiting for her. The mercenaries were close now. Their voices echoed through the trees. Daniel pulled her away from the ruin. "We can't stay, not yet. They'll find us." They ran again, moving until the forest thinned into open cliffs. The wind roared here, and below stretched a deadly drop into mist. Daniel glanced back. Shadows moved among the trees, mercenaries closing fast. Trapped between hunters and the cliff, he stood in front of Lyra, fists clenched. "Stay behind me." The mercenaries emerged, weapons raised. Their leader stepped forward, visor glinting in the pale light. "You've run far enough, human. Hand her over." Daniel's voice cut through the wind. "Never." The leader's laugh was low, cruel. "You think you can protect her? She is the key to power far greater than you understand. You can't stop what's coming." He signaled his men. They advanced. Lyra's fear burst again, but this time Daniel held her close. "No, Lyra, don't let them take your fear. Let them feel your strength." She trembled, staring at the advancing soldiers. Then her glow surged, brighter than before. The ground shook, stones lifting into the air. The mercenaries stumbled, their aim faltering. Daniel shielded her with his body, but he could see her power was no longer wild. It was rising with purpose. Her voice, though shaking, cried out, "Leave us alone!" A wave of energy erupted from her, sending the mercenaries crashing back. The leader staggered but did not fall. His visor cracked, revealing cold, scarred eyes. He wiped blood from his lip and smiled. "Good," he said. "The power is awakening. Soon it will be mine." He retreated with his men, fading into the trees. Daniel held Lyra tightly as the glow faded, her body weak. "You did it," he whispered. She closed her eyes against his chest, exhausted. But Daniel knew the fight was not over. The mercenaries would return, stronger and angrier. And the ruin they had found hinted at something greater, something tied to Lyra's bloodline. If they wanted to survive, they would have to face the leader directly. The final battle was coming. The forest was silent after the mercenaries retreated, but Daniel knew silence never lasted. He built a small fire in the shelter of rocks, warming Lyra's trembling hands. She leaned against him, her face pale, her body still weak from the burst of power. "I can't do this," she whispered. Daniel shook his head. "You already did twice, you saved us. You just don't see it yet." She clutched the pendant he had given her, pressing it to her chest as though it held her together. "They'll come again." Daniel's voice was steady. "Then we'll be ready." By dawn, the mercenaries struck. They came in numbers, their boots shaking the earth as they pushed through the forest. The leader stood at their front, his cracked visor revealing the scarred face of a man who had never known mercy. His voice carried over the wind. "Human, bring out the child. Fight, and I will burn this forest to ash." His soldiers raised their weapons, flames crackling at their tips. Lyra's breath quickened, but Daniel placed himself before her. His voice rang out clear. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The leader laughed coldly. "So be it." He raised his hand, and the battle began. Energy blasts tore through the trees. Daniel dragged Lyra behind the old stone ruin they had discovered before. He turned to her, eyes sharp. "Listen, Lyra, you're not cursed. You're not weak. You are more than what they call you. This is your chance to show them." She shook her head, tears streaking her face. "I'll hurt you. I'll hurt everyone." Daniel grabbed her hands tightly. "No, you'll protect. You'll save. Believe me, Lyra, believe in yourself." The ruin responded to her presence once more. The stones glowed faintly as she touched them, and symbols flared with blue light. The energy pulsed, feeding into her trembling body. She gasped as warmth spread through her, steadier than before. "It's listening to me," she whispered. Daniel smiled. "Then let it hear your heart." The mercenaries closed in, their weapons firing relentlessly. Daniel fought fiercely, swinging makeshift weapons, striking with strength born of desperation. He felled one, then another, but there were too many. Blades slashed across his arm, and he staggered. Lyra screamed, her glow bursting brighter. Stones lifted into the air, crashing into the mercenaries with thunderous force. "Stay away from him," she cried. The power surged outward, a wave of light that sent soldiers flying. For the first time, she wasn't losing control. The power obeyed her. The leader stepped forward, unfazed. His armor sparked from the energy, but he kept walking. "Impressive," he sneered. "But you are still a child. Your gift is wasted on you. Give it to me." He raised his weapon at Daniel. Lyra's heart stopped. The man she trusted, the one who never left her, stood bleeding and unarmed. Something inside her broke free. She stepped in front of Daniel, her arms wide. "No," she said firmly, her voice trembling but loud. "You won't take him. You won't take me." The ruin erupted with light. The ground shook as ancient energy poured into her veins. The sky above split with shimmering blue, casting the forest in strange glow. The mercenaries fell back, shielding their eyes. Even their leader staggered, his weapon falling. Lyra's body lifted slightly from the ground, her eyes glowing like stars. She raised her hands, and the light surged outward. Not wild, not destructive, but controlled, like a river flowing exactly where she willed it. The mercenaries were thrown back, weapons shattered, armor cracking. They scrambled to flee, fear finally breaking them. The leader alone stood, stubborn, snarling. He charged, blade drawn, but Lyra did not flinch. Her hand rose, and the energy froze him mid-strike. His blade turned to dust. His body slammed into the earth, pinned by invisible force. She stepped closer, her voice quiet but unshakable. "You called me cursed. You thought I was weak. You were wrong." The leader's eyes widened as the glow around her grew hotter. Daniel called softly, "Lyra." "Enough." She looked at Daniel, then at the terrified man. Slowly, the glow dimmed. She released him, letting him fall broken into the dirt. He crawled away, his soldiers fleeing with him. Silence returned to the forest. Lyra dropped to her knees, the light fading from her skin. Daniel rushed to her, holding her close. She buried her face in his chest, shaking. "I was so scared." He stroked her hair, his voice gentle. "You were brave, and you saved us." She pulled back slightly, her lips trembling into a small smile. "Because you believed in me." Daniel smiled back, his voice low. "Always." When they returned to the colony days later, the people looked at Lyra with awe instead of fear. They had heard the battle, seen the light in the sky, and knew she was no curse. The elders, ashamed, bowed their heads. Lyra, for the first time, walked through the square without lowering her eyes. Children who once mocked her now watched in silence, no longer daring to call her cursed. But Lyra didn't smile because of them. She smiled because Daniel walked beside her, his hand steady in hers. The girl who once stood alone, invisible, had found her place, not because the colony finally accepted her, but because a human had reached out his hand and given her a reason to believe she was never alone.